Hi, James. A huge privilege to speak to you. You kept me sane the last couple of years with this Brexit stuff. But after that, where do I start with psychology stuff? I'm a former UN interpreter from Bosnia.
Okay.
The youngest interpreter in Bosnia. And I was 16 years old when I got with the UN in Bosnia. And I was combat interpreter throughout the whole troubles in Bosnia. Wow. And then came to UK with UK government got me out.
Yes.
Similar thing what they did with Afghan interpreters now. So I've been in UK since 1995. A few years initially, obviously struggle. I was very young, 18 years old. Left all my family in Bosnia by myself here in UK. Put myself through education and everything. About 10 years after that, my PTSD kicked in, which I didn't know anything about it in those days. What it was, I started getting huge health anxieties. I was afraid I'm going to die and everything. And then I had, been irritable and then shut myself almost from society. And luckily, when I was at university, I met a lovely Welsh girlfriend who's my wife now. Oh. So she stood by me all the time.
So she knew the real you was somewhere beneath these behaviours, perhaps.
Yeah, but I couldn't see that. Right. I couldn't see myself. I was very irritable. Then I was start, like I said, shutting myself down. And then when I came to UK initially, the family I was staying with in Scotland, they recognized. I went to high school there. They recognized there's something wrong, and they introduced me to counselling.
Right.
And I didn't know anything about it. I was like, "Oh, you just need to be stronger.
Yeah,
you just came from a war.
You need to be stronger.
You need
to be stronger. Come on, you need to be stronger.
Yeah.
It's so dangerous. It's toxic, man."
Yeah, and it's that mentality as well from Europe, from Bosnia as well. Come on, man, get a grip of yourself. But obviously I was fighting inside myself. And I had, since then, 3 bouts of counselling, and it was, proper diagnosed, the clinical psychologist, the PTSD for the long exposure in a war zone.
Of course.
15 years old, what do you expect?
I know.
Being interpreter for fire rescue service in Sarajevo, that's where I was based. And, the city was under siege for 3 years. Stuff that I've seen, now I've realized what's wrong with me.
And how liberating was it, Edin? How did it, did it manifest immediately in other areas of your life? Was it as if...
Well, it wasn't. It was. I found initially it was boring. I was just talking about it. But then, and it became normality for me, talking about seeing dead kids, dead people, and it was just. And then, when we had the daughter recent, a few years ago, it hit me then.
Again.
Seeing images, remember images of kids that I picked up being,
of course,
badly injured and everything, and looking at my daughter now and thinking oh my God, what
you'd be terrified,
I do?
And
and that's how it manifests on my health anxieties. I'm just so afraid. I'm shaking now talking to you.
Yes,
really nervous. Being afraid of dying, and not being in control. While I was in Bosnia, did stupid things. Sometimes running into sniper fire and everything without my body armor and ballistic helmet, because you just don't think. Being young
and you don't finish those behaviours, those episodes, those actions, and then just that's it, they're over. They're never really over, are they?
Never. Now I'm so super safety, health and safety conscious, and everything else. When people
tell me how it changed your relationship with your wife, if you would.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Hugely. The counselling. Luckily, I didn't go on antidepressants.
Okay.
I was on the borderline. I was on the verge. And the last year, I had another lot of counselling of the Zoom, because obviously the pandemic and everything, and almost, we were on the verge of a relationship kind of splitting. But that helped, huge counselling, just changed my outlook. Now I'm much more calmer than what I used to be.
And that's better for everybody around you. But of course, most importantly, it's better for you because you don't have those moments of adrenaline. You mentioned shaking there, but the bad kind, when you're constantly on edge, when you're constantly frightened, when you're constantly angry, when you're constantly it's just no way to live, isn't it? But you think it's the only way to live because it's the only way you can remember living.
But that's why I thought that was me. That's normal. That's the new norm. And talking about adrenaline, I won't keep it long. I know your break is coming up. I know you're time.
You've been speaking to Keith, haven't you?
Yeah, that adrenaline fatigue. Every time I would have a counselling, I would feel totally exhausted after because I would just regurgitate all my Bosnia stuff. That I would just feel totally exhausted, and I would have a best night's sleep after my counselling session.
That's
because
amazing.
I would be just totally exhausted,
drained, and some of the stuff that you have drained away is stuff that was hurting you and poisoning you from the inside. Edin, thank you. And you're right. I have got to go to a break. I'm so glad you were listening. I'm so glad you could call in. Not least because, as I said at the top, people who've been through horror. Absolute horrors. It's much easier for us to understand, but the people that have been through it still resist the idea that they need help, or still resist the idea that it's done them harm. And then you come right back to something that may seem relatively innocuous or normal from the outside, but which did such harm to a younger person that it ends up polluting who they are as an adult. And there isn't a hierarchy of horror, which is really hard to get your head around when you speak to someone like Edin, because if you're like me, you're thinking, well, how dare I suggest that what I've been through might be in any way comparable? But that, of course, is the role that therapy plays. Very, very different journeys, which are somehow also the same. Edin, mate, thank you. I won't forget that call.